The ruined city of HFY stretched before Ethan Cole, its once majestic spires reduced to crumbling husks of metal and stone. Dust and alien flora had overtaken the remnants of what was once a thriving civilization, now lost to time. The planet had been deemed uninhabitable by most, but to xenoarchaeologists like him, it was a goldmine of historical significance. "This place gives me the creeps," muttered Jackson, one of Ethan's fellow researchers, as he adjusted the scanner strapped to his wrist. "Every time we dig into one of these old ruins, I feel like something's watching us." Ethan smirked. "That's because something probably is. Just not in the way you think." The team had been excavating a massive underground vault beneath the ruins of what seemed to be a temple. This structure, unlike the rest, had remained sealed for untold centuries until now. A few well-placed charges had cracked open the entrance, revealing a tunnel leading into the depths of the planet. "I'll take a look inside," Ethan said, strapping on his headlamp. "Keep the scanners running in case anything shifts." As he descended, the air grew thick and still, carrying the faint scent of something metallic and unfamiliar. He moved carefully, stepping over broken machinery and eerie alien inscriptions lining the walls. Then he saw it. A massive, intricately designed stasis pod stood at the end of the chamber. Unlike the rest of the ruins, this device was intact, its surface smooth and unmarred by time. A faint golden light pulsed from within, illuminating the figure inside. Ethan's breath caught. The being inside was tall, easily 10 feet, her form elegant and statuesque. Her skin, a metallic bronze, seemed to shift slightly as if alive with energy. Strange markings ran down her arms, glowing faintly with a bioluminescent shimmer. Her face, though alien, held a striking resemblance to human features. High cheekbones, full lips, and eyes closed in an expression of peaceful slumber. He barely had time to react before his communicator crackled to life. "Ethan, we're picking up energy surges from below. Something's happening down there." Before he could respond, the pod hissed. A surge of power coursed through the chamber as the containment seals disengaged. Dust swirled around him as the machine came to life, and with a deep, resonant hum, the pod began to open. Ethan took a cautious step back, heart pounding. Then, she opened her eyes. They glowed like molten gold, locking onto him with an intensity that sent a shiver down his spine. For a moment, silence hung between them. Then the ground trembled. Ethan barely had time to register the movement before the walls erupted with motion. From the shadows of the ruins, ancient sentinels began to stir. Metallic constructs with piercing red optics, their long dormant systems flaring to life. And they were looking straight at him. Guys?" Ethan muttered into his communicator. "We've got a problem." The alien woman tilted her head, her eyes narrowing at the mechanical guardians as if recognizing them. Then she turned to Ethan. Her voice didn't come from her lips. It echoed in his mind like a whisper carried by the wind. "Run." The moment the word formed in his mind, "Run," Ethan felt the cold grip of fear wrap around his chest. The alien woman's golden eyes locked onto his, the intensity in them undeniable. She had spoken without speaking, her voice threading directly into his thoughts. Telepathy. The ground rumbled beneath them as the ancient sentinels fully activated. Their angular, metallic bodies hissed and groaned with the sound of shifting gears that had long since rusted. Their red optics flared, locking onto Ethan and the alien woman with unmistakable hostility. "They see us as intruders." Ethan's instincts screamed at him to bolt, but his body refused to move. His brain was still processing the reality of what was happening. An advanced alien woman, a stasis pod, a telepathic connection, and now murderous sentinels waking from a centuries-long slumber. The alien woman, however, didn't hesitate. With a single fluid motion, she raised her arm, and the bioluminescent markings on her skin flared like living fire. A pulse of golden energy rippled through the chamber, crackling like lightning. The nearest sentinel shuddered violently, its metal shell warping as if an unseen force was crushing it. Then, with a deafening screech, the machine exploded into shards. Ethan barely had time to duck as molten fragments of alien metal flew past him. "Whoa, okay. Good to know you can do that," he shouted. But there were more coming. The remaining sentinels moved with unnatural precision, their long, multi-jointed limbs clanking as they rushed toward them. Weapons formed from their forearms, crackling with unstable energy. The alien woman grabbed Ethan's wrist, her grip impossibly strong. "Move. Now!" This time he listened. They sprinted through the crumbling chamber, dodging falling debris as the sentinels opened fire. Bolts of red-hot plasma seared past them, striking the walls and sending up bursts of shattered stone. The underground vault was collapsing, the weight of centuries finally taking its toll. Ethan tapped his communicator. "Jackson, we're in trouble down here. The ruins are coming apart." Static. Cursing, he pushed himself to run faster, following the alien woman as she wove through the corridors with the grace of someone who had walked them before. But how? She had just woken up. Another explosion rocked the tunnel behind them, sending Ethan sprawling forward. The alien woman whirled, catching him with ease, her strength making it feel as if he weighed nothing. She's fast, strong, and she knows this place. He wanted to ask questions, who she was, why she was here, what the hell was happening. But survival took priority. They burst through an arched doorway into what looked like a vast antechamber. Towering pillars stretched into darkness, alien glyphs glowing faintly along their surfaces. In the center of the room stood a monolithic console, its interface blinking erratically as if trying to reboot after untold years of dormancy. "Help me activate it," her voice again inside his mind. Ethan hesitated. "What is it?" A way out. Behind them, the sentinels closed in. He didn't have time to argue. Rushing forward, he placed his hands on the console, searching for any kind of recognizable interface. The glyphs changed at his touch, shifting into patterns he didn't understand. His scanner beeped wildly, struggling to process the information. The alien woman stepped beside him, placing both hands on the console. The golden glow of her markings flared again, and suddenly, the entire room came to life. The pillars pulsed with energy. The ground rumbled, and in the far end of the chamber, a doorway materialized, an opening to the surface. Ethan exhaled sharply. "That's our way out." The alien woman turned, her expression unreadable. Then her eyes widened. Ethan followed her gaze, just in time to see one of the sentinels launching straight at him. He didn't have time to react. The machine tackled him with the force of a freight train, slamming him into the ground. Pain exploded through his ribs. The sentinel's metallic claws clamped around his throat, its glowing optics burning into his. Then, with a bone-shaking roar, the alien woman lunged. She grabbed the machine by the head and ripped it off. Ethan gasped as the weight of the lifeless machine collapsed beside him. He coughed, trying to push himself up. "Holy!" The woman knelt beside him, her bioluminescent markings dimming. "Are you hurt?" Ethan forced out a laugh. "Define hurt?" She tilted her head, studying him as if she didn't quite understand the humor. Then, without warning, she placed a hand against his chest. A warmth spread through him, like liquid sunlight seeping into his skin. The pain dulled, the throbbing in his ribs fading. Ethan inhaled sharply. "What was that?" Before she could answer, the remaining sentinels reared back, their bodies suddenly spasming as the entire structure of the ruins trembled. Sparks erupted from their limbs as if an unseen force was shutting them down. Ethan and the alien woman turned toward the console. It was pulsing with energy, more than before. And then, a deep, mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Unauthorized presence detected. Containment breach imminent. Initiating planetary lockdown." Ethan swore under his breath. "That doesn't sound good." The alien woman's gaze darkened. "No, it does not." A deep, metallic hum reverberated through the ruins, shaking dust and debris loose from the towering pillars. Ethan barely had time to catch his breath before the alien woman grabbed his arm and yanked him to his feet with impossible strength. "We must leave. Now." The words weren't spoken, but threaded directly into his mind. Urgent, forceful. Ethan didn't argue. Behind them, the remaining sentinels jerked violently as if caught in an invisible storm, their limbs seizing up. Sparks burst from their joints, their optics flickering between crimson and black. The planetary AI was overriding them, preparing something worse. The monolithic console pulsed with angry red light. Containment protocols engaged. The walls trembled. Somewhere deep beneath them, something enormous stirred. Ethan and the alien woman sprinted for the glowing exit, the once solid wall now a swirling portal of alien energy. The woman reached it first, turning back just as a tremor knocked Ethan off balance. He stumbled, barely catching himself before tumbling forward. A sudden screech tore through the chamber. Ethan looked back, and his stomach dropped. A new figure emerged from the depths of the ruins. Towering, skeletal, and made of the same dark metal as the sentinels. It moved with a terrifying, unnatural fluidity. Its elongated head pulsed with crimson light, and it had too many arms, each tipped with gleaming, serrated claws. It was a war form, and it was looking right at him. Ethan had seen xenowar machines before, but nothing like this. This wasn't just a guardian. It was a relic of a forgotten war, built for annihilation. The alien woman's voice thundered in his mind. Run! This time he didn't need to be told twice. The war form lunged. Ethan threw himself forward as the massive clawed hand slammed into the ground where he had been standing. Shards of broken stone erupted in all directions. He rolled, pain lancing through his ribs, and scrambled toward the glowing exit. The alien woman raised a hand, her golden markings blazing as she unleashed a shockwave of energy. The force struck the war form head-on, sending it skidding backward, metal screeching against stone. But it didn't fall. It steadied itself and adapted. The crimson glow in its core flared brighter, its frame shifting. A pair of plasma-forged blades extended from its forearms, crackling with unstable energy. Oh, come on, Ethan groaned. The warform launched forward, moving too fast for something its size. The alien woman didn't flinch. She stepped in front of Ethan and raised both hands. A golden barrier snapped into place just as the warform's blades slammed against it, sending sparks flying in every direction. The force of the impact sent cracks spiderwebbing across the ground beneath them. Ethan felt the heat from the plasma blades just inches from his face. The alien woman strained, her bioluminescent patterns flickering. She can't hold it forever. Ethan's brain kicked into overdrive. His eyes darted to the environment, pillars, walls, structural weaknesses. Then to the warform plasma core's exposed servos. He needed a distraction. His hand shot to his utility belt. He had exactly one high-yield thermite charge left. It wasn't much, but it might buy them time. He primed the charge, aimed for the ceiling above the warform, and threw. The device detonated. The explosion wasn't massive, but it was enough. A section of the ceiling collapsed, raining down tons of ancient debris. The warform recoiled, its barrier flickering as it tried to adjust. Ethan didn't wait to see if it recovered. He grabbed the alien woman's wrist and dived through the portal. Surface of HFY 9. A blinding light swallowed them whole, and then they were outside. Ethan hit the rocky surface hard, coughing as the cold, dusty air of HFY 9 filled his lungs. His ears rang. His heart pounded. He was alive. Beside him, the alien woman knelt, her bioluminescent patterns dimming. She looked at him, her expression unreadable. Then the ground shook again. Ethan turned back toward the ruins, and his blood ran cold. The warform wasn't gone. It was climbing. It tore its way through the collapsing ruins, emerging onto the surface with terrifying speed. Its glowing crimson optics locked onto them, and for the first time Ethan saw something in the way it moved. Recognition. Not of him, of her. The alien woman's fists clenched. It knows me. Ethan pulled out his sidearm. Not that it would do anything against that. Great. Any ideas? She exhaled slowly, then turned to him. We must leave this place. The warform will not stop until I am dead. Ethan frowned. Yeah, I got that part. But why you? She hesitated, as if weighing whether to answer. Then finally, Because I was the one who ordered its creation. Ethan froze. Before he could even begin to process that bombshell, his communicator crackled to life. Ethan, finally, where the hell have you been? It was Jackson. His voice was panicked, urgent. Ethan fumbled for his communicator. I'm here. We need immediate evac. Jackson cut him off. We have bigger problems. A hostile fleet just dropped out of FTL. Scavengers. They picked up the distress beacon. We're under attack. Ethan's heart sank. Of course. The AI's distress signal must have been broadcasting across the system. Now every scavenger crew, pirate, and warlord in the sector would be converging on Cipher 9, eager to loot its secrets. The alien woman's golden eyes darkened. Then we are out of time. Above them, the scavenger fleet descended, their rusted warships blotting out the stars. Behind them, the warform reared back, plasma blades burning. And Ethan Cole, archaeologist, explorer, and very not a soldier, found himself caught between two unstoppable forces. The warform's plasma blades hissed as it raised them, its towering frame casting a long shadow over Ethan and the alien woman. Behind them, scavenger warships descended like predatory birds, their rusted hulls glowing under Cipher 9's dying sun. Ethan's mind raced. They had seconds before all hell broke loose. His communicator crackled again. Ethan, we've got incoming hostiles in orbit. They're deploying ground teams. Repeat, we are not alone down there. Ethan turned to the alien woman. You said you ordered that thing's creation. Can you shut it down? She clenched her fists. No. Great. Ethan exhaled. So what's plan B? She met his gaze, her glowing golden eyes filled with something he hadn't seen before, regret. We run. The warform lunged. The alien woman grabbed Ethan by the waist and leapt. For a moment, he felt weightless, the world blurring around him as she propelled them across the ruined terrain with inhuman strength. They landed hard on a jagged outcrop of stone, and before he could catch his breath, she was already moving again. Ethan twisted his head midair. The warform did not pursue. Instead, it turned toward the approaching scavenger dropships. The first ship barely had time to react before the warform sliced through its hull with terrifying precision. A brilliant shockwave of plasma erupted from the explosion, sending the wreckage crashing into the ruins below. Ethan's stomach twisted. It's not just after us. It's killing anything that lands on this planet. It's protecting something. The alien woman landed on a plateau, finally setting Ethan down. She turned toward the battle unfolding behind them. Okay, Ethan panted. You want to tell me what the hell is going on? She hesitated. Then, I was one of them. Ethan frowned. One of who? She looked down at her glowing arms, the golden markings dimming slightly. My people built the warforms. They were designed to protect us, to ensure our empire endured forever. Ethan blinked. Empire? She nodded. Once my kind ruled the stars. We were the Zypherians, masters of technology, architects of impossible wonders. But our pride led to ruin. The warforms, the sentinels, they were meant to protect us. Instead, they turned on us. Ethan exhaled sharply. Let me guess. Rogue AI? She gave a slow nod. Yes, our creations deemed us unfit to rule. The warforms exterminated my people, wiped out entire planets, until only ruins remained. Ethan swallowed. He'd heard dozens of stories about civilizations being destroyed by their own machines. But this was worse. She looked away. I was the one who authorized the Warform project. I believed they would keep us safe. Instead, I doomed my entire species. Silence stretched between them. For the first time, Ethan saw beyond the warrior, beyond the terrifying strength and alien power. He saw guilt, pain, a woman burdened by the weight of a civilization's fall. You weren't the only one who made a mistake, Ethan finally said. And you're not alone anymore. Her golden eyes widened slightly. Before she could respond, Ethan's communicator flared to life. Ethan, we're pinned down. Jackson's voice was barely audible over the sound of gunfire. Scavengers hit us hard. We're trying to evac, but we need cover. Ethan clenched his jaw. Where are you? Eastern Ridge. But the war forms between us. Ethan turned to the alien woman. We have to go. Now. She nodded. Then, in one smooth motion, she lifted him onto her back and took off. Battle on the Eastern Ridge. The wreckage of scavenger dropships burned in the valley below. Their crews scattered across the ruins, engaged in a brutal firefight. Ethan's team had taken cover behind a collapsed structure, returning fire against a gang of armored raiders. Ethan and the alien woman landed hard, kicking up dust. Jackson's eyes widened. Holy, no time. Ethan cut him off. We have to get out of here. Jackson gestured wildly. Tell that to the damn scavengers. Ethan looked at the alien woman. Can you? She was already moving. With a wave of her hand, a golden energy wave erupted from her body, crashing into the scavengers like a living storm. Their weapons short-circuited, their exosuits froze in place. One by one, they collapsed, completely paralyzed. Jackson stared. I'm both amazed and terrified. Ethan clapped his shoulder. Welcome to my world. Then, a monstrous screech split the air. They all turned just in time to see the warform rising over the battlefield, its burning crimson optics locking onto them. It was done with the scavengers. Now it was coming for them. Ethan felt the alien woman tense beside him. This ends now. She stepped forward, golden energy blazing around her. The warform charged. Ethan barely had time to react before she met it head-on. Their collision sent a shockwave tearing through the battlefield. The final battle for HFY 9 had begun. The shockwave from their collision ripped through the battlefield, sending dust and debris flying in all directions. Ethan stumbled back, shielding his face as the sheer force of the impact knocked scavengers off their feet and sent burning wreckage tumbling down the ridge. The alien woman and the warform clashed. Their battle wreathed in gold and crimson light. Plasma-forged blades slashed through the air, carving molten scars into the rocky terrain. The alien woman dodged with inhuman speed, her golden markings flaring as she retaliated with crushing telekinetic blows. The warform staggered but did not fall. It adapted, its limbs shifting, reinforcing its armor with some terrifyingly advanced combat protocol. Ethan's mind raced. This wasn't a simple machine. It was learning. Ethan, Jackson's voice cut through the chaos. We need an exit strategy now. Ethan's heart pounded. The ship, they needed to get back to the ship. He grabbed his communicator, shouting over the battle. Mason, bring the Falcon in for a hot pickup. Eastern Ridge. Now. Copy that. But you've got scavenger warbirds inbound. You need to look out. A red plasma blast screamed through the air. Ethan barely had time to react before the alien woman was there, shielding him with her own body. The blast slammed into her, sending her skidding across the ground. The golden glow around her flickered violently, and for the first time, Ethan saw pain flash across her face. His stomach dropped. She could take hits that would kill any human, but she wasn't invincible. The warform seized its moment. It moved with terrifying speed, launching itself toward her with both plasma blades raised. Ethan reacted without thinking. HFY, tin can, he roared, grabbing his last thermite charge. He primed it, aimed for the warform's exposed vent ports, and threw. The charge stuck, detonated. The warform reeled as white-hot flames erupted across its back. Its metallic scream echoed through the battlefield, and for a moment, just a brief, fleeting moment, it stumbled. The alien woman took her chance. With a single motion, she thrust out both hands, channeling every ounce of power left in her body. The golden light around her exploded outward, twisting into a spear of pure energy. She hurled it straight at the warform's core. The impact was instantaneous. The warform froze, its entire body shuddering as energy surged through its systems. The red glow in its optics flickered, then died. A beat of silence. Then, with a deafening crash, the warform collapsed. A cloud of dust rose around its fallen form, its once indestructible body now little more than a shattered husk. The golden energy around the alien woman faded, her body swaying unsteadily. She had won. But at what cost? Ethan rushed forward, catching her just as her knees buckled. Her breathing was shallow, her golden eyes dim. Hey, stay with me, Ethan urged, gripping her shoulders. You did it. That thing's down. We just have to get out of here. She shook her head weakly. No, not yet. Ethan frowned. What do you mean, not yet? She looked toward the ruins, where the warform's core still pulsed faintly. Then she whispered something that sent a chill down his spine. It is not the last. Ethan's breath caught. There were more. Before he could process the implications, the Falcon roared overhead, its engines kicking up a storm of dust as it descended toward them. The ship's rear ramp lowered, revealing Mason at the controls, frantically waving them on. Move, 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 Jackson shouted. We need to go. Ethan tightened his grip on the alien woman, lifting her into his arms. She was taller, heavier than any human, but he didn't care. He carried her onto the ship, ignoring the pain burning through his muscles. Behind them, the scavenger fleet descended, their warships deploying more ground teams, completely unaware of the monster Ethan's team had just barely defeated. The moment Ethan, Jackson, and the alien woman were inside, Mason gunned the engines. The Falcon shot skyward, leaving the ruins of HFY 9 and the secrets buried beneath it, far below. Aboard the Falcon deep space, the cockpit was quiet. The battle was over. The Falcon had escaped, but Ethan's mind was far from calm. He sat beside the alien woman, who lay resting in the ship's medbay, her breathing slow but steady. The golden glow of her markings had returned, weaker than before, but there. Jackson leaned against the doorway. So, are we going to talk about the fact that we just unleashed something way worse than we expected? Ethan exhaled. Yeah, we are. Jackson crossed his arms. And her? What's her deal? Ethan looked down at the woman who had saved his life. She's the only one who understands what's coming. As if sensing his words, she stirred, her golden eyes slowly opening. For the first time, she spoke aloud. My name is Sayari. Ethan nodded. I'm Ethan. He hesitated. Then, thank you. She studied him, then, to his surprise, smiled. And despite everything, the war form, the scavengers, the coming storm, Ethan felt something stir inside him. He had traveled across the stars looking for lost civilizations, for ruins of the past. But here, in the middle of the vast unknown, he had found something else. Something he never expected. He had found her. The Falcon drifted through the void, leaving HFY 9 far behind. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the cockpit window, but Ethan Cole wasn't looking at them. He was watching her. Sayari sat upright in the medbay, her golden markings dim but still glowing faintly. She was healing, albeit slowly. The battle with the war form had drained her, but there was still strength in her posture. Her eyes, bright, intelligent, and utterly alien, watched him in return. For a long moment, neither spoke. Then she broke the silence. You should have left me, Ethan scoffed, leaning back against the wall. Not a chance. Sayari studied him, tilting her head slightly. It was a small movement, but Ethan had learned to read her expressions in the short time they had known each other. This was curiosity. You do not fear me. Ethan hesitated, thinking back to everything he had seen. The impossible power she wielded, the ruins of her empire, the war form that had nearly killed them all. He should be terrified, but he wasn't. Instead, he shook his head. No. Should I? Sayari's lips parted slightly, as if the thought had never occurred to her, as if no one had ever spoken to her like that before. Before she could answer, Jackson's voice echoed from the cockpit. Guys? We got a problem. Ethan shot to his feet. Now what? The shadow of the past. Ethan stepped into the cockpit just as the Falcon sensors blared warnings. Jackson pointed at the display. I just picked up a gravitational anomaly. Something big just dropped out of FTL. Ethan's stomach twisted. Scavengers? Jackson swallowed. Worse, a massive dark structure loomed in the void ahead. It wasn't a ship. It was something far older. an orbital construct, half buried in the asteroid belt beyond Cypher 9. Sayari stepped into the cockpit behind Ethan, and the moment she saw it, she froze. Her golden eyes widened, her breath hitching. Ethan turned to her. "What is it?" Her voice was barely a whisper. "The core." Ethan felt ice crawl down his spine. Sayari clenched her fists. "That is where the warforms were born." A cold realization settled over Ethan. The warform they fought was just a remnant. This was the true heart of the Zypherian war machine. And it was still alive. As if in response to their presence, the station awoke. Crimson lights flickered to life along its surface. A deep, mechanical hum resonated through the Falcon's sensors. Then movement. Dozens of smaller shapes detached from the construct. Not ships. Warforms. Ethan's blood ran cold. "Tell me you have a plan." Sayari exhaled slowly, stepping forward. "Yes." She turned to Ethan, her golden eyes filled with something new. Determination. "I will end this. The last stand." The Falcon weaved through the oncoming warforms, its engines roaring as Mason executed evasive maneuvers. Jackson fired the ship's turret, but the warforms were too fast, too relentless. They needed to strike at the source. Sayari turned to Ethan. "You trust me?" Ethan hesitated. Then, without a doubt, "Yes." Sayari placed a hand over his chest, her golden light flaring to life. A strange warmth spread through him, unlike anything he had ever felt. "I am going to send you into the core," she said. "You must place this." She held out a small golden artifact, a shard of the same energy she wielded. It pulsed gently, humming in harmony with the ancient construct. "What will it do?" Ethan asked. Sayari met his gaze. "It will end the warforms. All of them." Ethan took the shard, his fingers brushing against hers. "And you?" A pause. Then, softly, "I will hold them off." Before he could protest, she lifted a hand, and in a flash of golden light, Ethan vanished. The heart of the machine. Ethan reappeared inside the core. The chamber was vast, lined with pulsing crimson conduits, the living nerve center of the warform network. At the center was a single black monolith, its surface rippling with unreadable symbols. The control nexus. A voice echoed through the chamber. "You are not Zypherian." Ethan turned. A spectral figure emerged from the monolith, its form shifting, glitching. An AI, the last remnant of the ancient empire's ambition. "You carry the light of the betrayer." Ethan didn't hesitate. He rushed forward, slamming the golden shard into the monolith's core. The entire station shuddered. The AI's voice distorted, turning into a furious screech. The warform network was collapsing. Ethan grabbed his communicator. "Sayari, it's done. Get out of there." No response. Panic surged through him. "Sayari." Then, her voice soft, but steady. "I am here." A blinding golden light erupted, engulfing the core. Ethan felt himself pulled away. A new future. When Ethan opened his eyes, he was back aboard the Falcon. Jackson and Mason were shouting in celebration, the ship's scanners confirming it. The warforms were gone. The core had been silenced. Ethan turned and saw her. Sayari stood beside him, her golden markings brighter than ever. Ethan exhaled, relief washing over him. "You made it." She tilted her head. "I promised I would." Ethan chuckled, running a hand through his hair. "So, what now?" Sayari looked out into the void. Then, she smiled. "We forged something new." Epilogue. As the Falcon disappeared into deep space, Cypher 9 lay silent. The warforms were no more. The past had been buried. But among the ruins, something stirred. Deep beneath the surface, hidden beneath layers of forgotten history, a single red light flickered. The war was not over. It had only just begun.